Hello, welcome to Technical Founders. My name is Carlos Lara, software engineer and entrepreneur, and in this video, we'll be learning about phase one in the customer validation step in the customer development process. And this step is called Get Ready to Sell. Now that's what validation means. Validation means you got sales from your product or service. That's validation. So in the first step, customer discovery, it was mainly about learning about the customer, learning or potential customers, learning everything you could about them, so you could actually position yourself to get ready to start selling, to get ready to sell. So let's get right into it. So the first part is articulate a value proposition. Now, from a customer's perspective, what does your company stand for? What does your product do? And why should I care? I mean, can you reduce your business to a single, clear, compelling message that says why your company is different and your product is worth buying? That's the goal of a value proposition. A value proposition builds the bond between you and your customer and becomes the focal point for building the company. This value proposition will appear in all of your sales materials from here on out. It is the sum of all you have learned in the previous step in customer discovery about product market fit. Now, don't worry about getting it perfect at this point because it will change and evolve as you get feedback from customers and other stakeholders. The idea of this phase is simply to acknowledge that you need to craft one and just take your best shot at creating one. It needs to be powerful. It needs to almost elicit an emotional response in the customer to actually make the most successful sales. So the first step is just to remember what you have learned in customer discovery about the customer's problems and about what they valued about your solution. What were the top 3 problems that your customers kept raising, that kept telling you that they had? Was there a phrase that kept coming up during your meetings when you talked to them? And based on your understanding of how customers work, how they spend their time, how they use other products, etc., where does your product affect these customers? So these are questions that you need to answer. And the value proposition will help articulate everything in just one clear, concise, powerful message. And one of the first tests of your value proposition, if it's powerful enough, is like I mentioned, is it emotionally compelling? So when you articulate the value proposition to your customer or potential customer, do their eyes fire up? Do they get excited? Do you feel that energy? Or do you just get a blank stare? See, that's actually a very important test. So that's something very important that you need to start off with, because this will become the basis of everything that you will do in customer validation. This will be the value proposition will be the core of all your sales materials, which actually brings us to the next part, which is prepare a preliminary collateral plan. What this means is basically sales materials. So you have a value proposition, and now you will be crafting sales materials that will be used during presentations to customers in an attempt to sell. So for example, you have a sales funnel, as we've talked about before. You have awareness, for example, then you have interest, consideration, and purchase. So when you're speaking to a customer and trying to sell, in awareness, you're presenting a certain kind of sales materials. And then once you move on to interest, for example, with that same customer, then you will present different kinds of materials, but everything revolves around the value proposition. The key here is that what you need to be thinking about is how can you add the most value to the customer? Because that's really what's going to determine the intrinsic value of your company. I mean, what is the real value that you're adding to your customers, to the marketplace, etc.? Why do you need to exist? Why are you valuable, and how do you stand out from everyone else? So all these sales materials will be preliminary at this point, like this says. They are subject to change, and they will be they're subject to iteration. At this point, you just want to keep costs low and just develop these preliminary materials so you can start creating a distribution channel or validating your distribution channel hypotheses and all these things. So that actually brings us to our next one here, which is develop a preliminary distribution channel plan. So back in customer discovery, you refine your hypotheses about distribution channels using the information you learn in your customer interviews. Now, this phase assumes that you have evaluated all the distribution channel alternatives and narrowed it down to just one. For now, just one distribution channel, the one with the highest probability of success. And now you can use that information to develop a preliminary channel plan. And a distribution channel plan comprises 3 elements. The first one is a channel food chain and responsibility. So for example, let's take the case of B2B sales. Let's say you're selling software to enterprises, to Fortune 500 companies. And there's different people in the organization. You have, for example, the CTO, you have the CIO, you have IT staff. I mean, you have all kinds of people, and you need to understand how the food chain in that company works and who talks to whom and who influences who. So you need to understand how the distribution of people in of the team is. You need to have a good understanding of that. The next one is the channel discount and financials. So let's say, for example, your business, you're selling some kind of a product and there's retailers and wholesalers involved. And so as your product moves from hands, some people are taking cuts, people may be taking commissions. So you need to have a clear map in your head of, or not just in your head, but also in writing very rigorously about who is getting how much money, who is getting what discount. So you need to understand how the money is flowing as your product moves from hands to hand, depending on the different people or organizations that are part of this process. And the last one is channel management. Now, let's say you have a preliminarily successful distribution channel and it's working. You can't just leave it there and hope for the best. You need analytics. You need reports. You need to be tracking all of the numbers. You know, how many orders are you having? How much sales? You need to be tracking and managing the distribution channel itself, so you can actually further learn new things and refine and actually go forward to take it to the next level. Perhaps get insight for a new distribution channel, maybe grab a particular number and increase it, things like that. So you need to actually be a manager of that channel as well. So that was part C, develop a preliminary distribution channel plan. And that brings us to the next one, which is develop a preliminary sales roadmap. So you have the distribution channel plan, preliminary, and then because you're getting ready to sell, and then you don't know if you can sell yet, right? You're in this phase. So develop a preliminary sales roadmap. Now, your goal is to determine who your true customers are and how they will purchase your product. You're ready to begin building a sales team only when you completely understand the process that transforms a prospect into a purchaser, and now you know you can sell the product at a price that supports your business model. Obviously, you're not building a sales organization at this point. You're not scaling a sales organization at this point. At this point, you need to first develop your preliminary sales roadmap so you can position yourself to succeed next. So with the sales roadmap in their hands, your sales force will be able to focus on actual sales instead of the hit and miss experimentation you will experience as you move through customer validation. Now, the complexity of your company's sales roadmap will depend on a number of things. So for example, the size of your customer base, budget, the price of the product, the industry in which you're selling, and the distribution channel that you have selected. Now, the sales roadmap has 4 elements. The first element is organization and influence maps. So like we talked about before, like the food chain having a map, you need to put in writing, and very rigorously assess, analyze, and actually put in writing the organization and influence map. So the easiest example is B2B sales, so enterprise sales. So for example, you have an organization like we mentioned, and there's different people in different roles, and there's different teams, and they all interact in unique ways amongst each other. You need to know who influences whose opinion is valued more and by whom. So you need to understand all the intricacies, all the interactions, all the complexities that go along among these human interactions. That's extremely important. And then the second is you need a customer access map. Now, this comes down to answering the proverbial sales question: how do you get your foot in the door? And especially B2B sales, for those watching who have done this, you know how hard it can be. Now, for a corporation, depending on the size of the organization you're approaching, you may need to move through different layers or departments before you can set up meetings with the people you identified in the organization and influence maps. So this is, again, very, very complex. You need to figure out how you're going to access the customer, how you're going to access perhaps the decision maker. Perhaps you need to access someone in the IT staff, and then they will refer you to someone higher up in the company, who, by the way, who then will refer you to an executive, and then you can set up a meeting, and then there's a trust involved. So there's complexity, there's intricacies involved, especially when selling to B2B customers. So you need a customer access map, and know very rigorously, you cannot wing this, by the way. You cannot wing it. You need to be very rigorous about this process, really understand and really learn. And that was actually a main part of customer discovery. You have already learned a lot of these things, and now it's time to put into action a plan to get ready to sell, obtain sales, and obtain validation. The next one is a sales strategy. So again, we'll give two examples, B2B and B2C. So B2B, let's say a corporate sale. You need to consider these questions as an example. So at what level do you need to enter the account? Do you sell high to executives or low to the operational staff? How many people on the organizational map need to say yes for a sale? Because sometimes you might have a situation where one person involved in this map, if they say no, it has a big impact, and it determines the overall answer. So you need to know who do you need the definite yeses from, etc. Now, does each department perceive the customer problem in the same way? We also have a perception issue when there's different people involved in a process before you can get to the actual customer that you're looking for. And also, what step can derail the entire sale? That's another thing that happens, that sometimes the salespeople think, oh, the sale is done. They said they're going to sign and everything is going to close, beautiful. And then what happens for X, Y, or Z, the deal doesn't go through. So things can happen in between, and you need to be aware of that. Now, for a consumer product, so for B2C, for example, do you need to access a specific demographic segment? Do you sell to college students, parents of children, families? How many people need to say yes for a sale? Is this an individual sale or a family decision? Let's say you're selling some kind of educational software to a college kid. Like, is the kid the one who purchases the product? Is it the family? Do they all contribute to the decision? Maybe mom wants to buy, dad doesn't, and maybe the sale doesn't go through. Maybe mom has, what she says that becomes the decision. So these are all these things that you need to know. But at this point, if you're in customer validation, if you've made it through this step and you pass customer discovery, you already have a lot of information, and you've learned a lot about these things by talking to customers or to potential customers. Now, and also here, even for B2C, for consumers, what step can derail the entire sale? So that's also another thing that you need to understand. And again, as you move out into the marketplace to sell your product, you will learn what works or not. As predictable patterns emerge, your strategy will become clear. And then the last one is, you need an implementation plan here for your sales roadmap. So write down all the things left to happen before the sale is finalized and the product delivered. And then determine who will follow up to manage them. So for example, for B2B, so does the CFO and or CEO need to approve the sale? Does the board need to approve the sale? Or B2C, does mom or dad need to approve the sale? Does the customer need to get a loan to finance the sale? All these intricacies, all these things you need to know. Again, you're a startup and you're doing customer development, and you're in customer discovery and customer validation, trying to find product market fit. A lot of this are questions. There's a lot of questions, and you don't have the answers yet, and you need to actually find out those answers through discovery and through validation. So let's move on to the next one. So the next step is hire a sales closer. Now, in most startups, it's likely the founding team is product oriented, especially tech startups, engineers, and it does not include a sales professional. This even happened to me, by the way. I started as an engineer. I did not know how to sell. I needed to learn sales, and then eventually bring someone in and build a team and all those things. But while the founders can get quite far in finding visionary customers, they usually have no skill or experience turning that relationship into the first order. Now that you're about to sell, a key question to ask is, does someone on the founding team have experience closing deals? Is someone in the founding team actually good at sales or has experience in sales? Does the team have a world-class set of customer contacts? And would you bet the company on the founder's ability to close the first sales? If not, you need to hire a sales closer. And a sales closer is not a VP of sales who just wants to immediately build and manage and scale a large sales organization. A sales closer is someone with a great Rolodex in the market you are selling into. And good sales closers are aggressive. They're salespeople. They want a great compensation package for success, and they have no interest in building a sales organization. Typically, they are experienced startup salespeople who love closing deals, are not ready to retire behind a desk. They like being out in the field. They like doing what they do, and they're experienced. They're aggressive in a good way. Aggressive. So the founding team and sales closer make up the core of customer development. If of the customer development team, now it becomes their job to learn and discover enough information to build the sales and channel roadmaps, which is actually one of the most important things here. So sales closers are invaluable in setting up meetings, appointments, pushing for follow-up meetings, and closing the deal. However, having a sales closer is not a substitute for getting founders to personally gather customer feedback. Because at the end of the day, even great salespeople, no one will be as passionate about the product as the founders. The founders who had the vision, who had the courage to start the company, perhaps leave everything behind, perhaps drop out of college, drop out of graduate school, leave a high-paying job to start this business. They are typically the most passionate people, and they are ideally positioned to sell. But if they cannot, let's say they're engineers, and for some, you may need to hire a sales closer. So it's something you need to consider. And then the last one, the second to last is align your executives. Now, the customer development and product development teams need to be in extreme agreement about all the deliverables and commitments that the company will make. So it's essential executives review and agree on the following. The first one is the engineering schedule, product deliverables, and philosophy. The second is sales collateral, all the sales materials. The executives need to be on board, in sync, and understand all these materials, the message that you're trying to convey in the marketplace. And then the third one is engineering's role in selling, installation, and post-sale support. So the executives need to be all aligned on these things and understand them very well. And generally speaking, the whole company needs to be on the same page and about the message that you're sending into the marketplace. And the last one is formalize your advisory boards. Now, in customer discovery, you may have asked for advisors' help on an informal basis as you were learning and discovering about customers and their problems, and you went out and talked to maybe influencers in the industry. So you learned, so you have already some people that can be part of your advisory board. And now in this step is when you actually formalize it. You formally engage with them. Now, think strategically, not tactically, about the sphere of influence and reach of advisors. Recruit only the advisors you need now, but make exceptions for brand names and influencers you want to cultivate, because you also need to be thinking about into the future as you move through these cycles. As the company grows, you need to be able to have some foresight and see what the company is going to need, who is it going to need, and you need to position yourself and the team and the company to succeed. Now, as far as boards, so here it says formalize your advisory boards plural. So for example, you can have a business board. You might have business mentors, maybe self-made millionaires, billionaires, someone who can give you business advice, or for example. Then you have technical advisory board. As for example, technical consultants, could be experts in the field, could be IT experts, things like that. Then you have a customer advisory board. So for example, early visionary customers, early evangelists can become part of your advisory board, of your customer advisory board, and help you because they're visionaries, right? They are with you, they see the vision, they bought into the vision, and they will be with you going forward. So they would be very good to formalize and actually make them part of your customer advisory board. Now, another is an industry. Maybe you talk to influencers, you talk to experts in the field, and then you start to recruit them, and now you can actually formalize your industry advisory board. You can have them be part of your team and ask for advice and help and feedback and things like that because they have key industry insight. And then the last one is sales and marketing. So you might have a sales and marketing advisory board. So people who are very good at sales and marketing, who understand, at least for your marketplace, for what you're trying to accomplish. And they will also be very, very helpful and critical most of the time, a lot of the time, to also contribute to this overall advice. So again, technical, business, customer, industry, and sales/marketing. All these advice, because you cannot do this alone. Even if you have an internal team, you still need advisors. You still need people with experience, let's say industry experience, career experience. They've done this before. They have insight there. Those are, you can think of them as powerful assets that can add value to you and your company, and you can add value to them because they are going to be part of this. So it's a win-win. Now, ensure that key potential customers are actually in your customer advisory board, because that also will help you get to product market fit faster and avoid a lot of failure. Actually, it will give you very, very good direction, especially if they're early evangelists. Now, that said, those are the steps here, the components, the dimensions of phase one, get ready to sell, of customer validation. And well, I hope you liked it. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, any thoughts, any comments, please leave them at the bottom. Also, please subscribe so you're the first to be notified when the videos come out. And I will see you next time.